Hi everyone, Bryan here for Curiodyssey, and I want to play with some chemistry today, specifically acids and bases. Now, what is an acid or a base? It's kind of a sticky question, because even a fancy technical definition,
An acid is a substance that's a proton donor.
requires some explanation.
It could be an Arrhenius acid, or a conjugate acid, or an electron pair receiver.
Suffice it to say that when you mix an acid and a base, they cancel each other out. They cease to exist as they were. We measure how much something is an acid or a base with a scale called pH. pH is just how acidic or basic something is. If something has pH 7, it's neutral. If something is less than 7, it's an acid. If something is more than 7, it's a base. It's that easy. This will probably make more sense if we do some things. I show you some things first. And this cabbage is going to be our acid-base indicator. The purple in this cabbage is an indicator. An indicator is just a chemical that when you add it to an acid or a base, it changes color and shows you whether you're using an acid or a base. So the purple in this cabbage is an indicator. We need to get the purple out of this cabbage and use that to find out if we're dealing with an acid or a base. And that's what we're going to do right now in the kitchen. I've always done this with hot water, but I've had people suggest other ways, so I'm going to try making my cabbage juice 3 different ways. I'm going to take half of this cabbage, and I'm going to put it in a pot, some boiling water. I'm going to boil it for a while. That other half I'm going to split in half again. I'm going to put 1/4 in the food processor, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. I have my doubts. I know that a food processor is not really meant to liquefy things, so we'll see. The other 1/4 I'm going to put in the blender, and that is meant to liquefy things. So I have high hopes for the blender, but we'll see.
So let's take a look at these results. I've got 3 glasses here for my 3 samples. And I want to see which one comes out the darkest. I'm going to need to rethink this. Alright team, new plan A. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a graduated cylinder. I'm going to put the same amount of cabbage juice in each glass from its source, and then I'm going to add extra water. So what that'll do, it'll dilute each sample by the same amount, and then maybe we'll be able to compare which is more or less purple.
That made it easier to tell the difference. You can see now that the food processor cabbage is the lightest in color. And even though you can't see it on camera, the boiled cabbage is slightly darker than the blender cabbage.
Now that we've found the best way for making our cabbage juice and we have this beautiful purple liquid, what do we do with it? Try mixing it with random household chemicals. But be safe. Make safe choices. Have a grown-up help you figure out which chemicals are safe for testing. But I found these things. Actually, some of these I planted here on purpose. But I've got some rubbing alcohol, some citric acid, bleach, drain cleaner, lemon juice, other drain cleaner, ammonia, baking soda, and some vinegar. And I'm going to go try all of them. Also, a quick safety pointer. Please do not mix these chemicals with each other. You should not go mixing random household chemicals together. Don't do it.
Okay, I'm ready with all my chemicals for testing here, some cups for testing in, and my nice dark cabbage juice. Now we're going to add cabbage juice. farther something is from neutral, the more basic it is, or the more acidic it is. You don't just have to change the chemicals that you're experimenting with. You can also change how you test with those things.
If you pour yourself a cup of cabbage juice, and then use a tool, like this little dropper bottle, to drip the chemical down gently from the side of the cup, it should form layers. You see the green layer on the bottom? And then if I add some acid to it, we should get a pink layer. And then, of course, if you mix it all up, you can bring it back to purple again.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about why this happens. The purple color of the cabbage comes from a chemical called an anthocyanin. There are lots of different anthocyanins. The anthocyanin in the cabbage slightly changes its molecular structure when you put it into an acid or a base. It slightly changes its shape, and the way we perceive that is it looks a different color. There are anthocyanins in lots of different things. They're in beets, they're in berries, they're in the skins of fruits, they're in flowers. They're all over the place. They're the most common pigment in plants in nature. They can be purple or red or blue or yellow or green. And that got me wondering if I could use this knowledge to change the colors of some other things. For example, if I go rummaging through the fridge and find that I've got some blueberries, and I've read that there are anthocyanins in the skins of blueberries that make them look blue, can I change a blueberry to be red? I'm gonna try it.
So I found in the freezer some raspberries, some blackberries, and some blueberries. And all I'm gonna do for this experiment is submerge one of each in both an acid and a base. So you can see on the top row, I have my berries. In the middle row, they're soaking in acid, and then on the bottom row, they're soaking in a base. And then I left them for 10 minutes, and now I'm gonna take them out.
Let's get closer looks at those, and then I'm going to try mushing them.
So here are the raspberries. The raspberry on the left was the normal berry, the raspberry in the middle was soaked in acid, and the raspberry on the right was soaked in a base. And you can actually see it's turned kind of green underneath. These are the blackberries, and again, the normal ones on the left, the acid blackberries in the middle, and the base blackberries on the right. And it didn't really change that much in either case. And here are the blueberries. Again, not much of a change for them.
But what I'd like to try doing is mashing them up and seeing if they've changed inside. Let's try with the blackberries. That looks like a mashed up blackberry. And then, let's do this one. Oh my goodness, it's a putrid looking green puddle. It mushed a lot easier too. Let's try the acid one. Yeah, again, that just looks like a normal mushed blackberry to me. Let's try it with these. Kind of curious, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Well, no, it looks like it's going to be more like the acid one. Ooh, neat. The seeds are still pink. So here are the results of our berry experiment. I like this experiment. I think this was a great one to try. Another way you can experiment with cabbage and pH is with some cabbage juice, a battery. Now I've got a clip for the battery and 2 pieces of other wire. And here's what you do. And then you put one wire on one side. This is going to be more of a challenge than I thought. And the other wire on the other side. And then you leave it.
I actually ended up moving this to a different place so that the light can come from underneath. And what you're seeing now is about 20 minutes shrunk into 15 seconds. And here's what it looked like after an hour.
A friend of mine who's a teacher suggested making this cabbage juice into Jello. I'm going to try that right now.
I mixed up some of my cabbage juice with unflavored gelatin. I followed the instructions on the box. Left it overnight in the fridge, and in the morning it cut nicely, came out real good, and now we're going to do some science with it. The first thing I wanted to do with this cabbage jello was see what happens when I submerge it in different concentrations of a chemical. So I've got 4 cups, 0 is just plain water, number 1 has a concentration of a base, 10 is 10 times more concentrated, and 100 is of course 100 times more concentrated. I'm just going to dunk them in there, leave them for a little while, and we'll come back to them later and see what they've done. The second test I wanted to do with this cabbage jello was see how the amount of time it's been soaking in a chemical changes it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place all 5 of these cabbage blocks in my shallow tray that's already filled with a base solution, and every so often we're going to take one out and see what's happened to it. While we're waiting for our time test, I'm going to take the blocks out of our concentration test. I'm going to cut each one in half, and when they're all out and cut, I'll zoom in and show you what they look like close up. So it's been 10 minutes, and I'm going to take one block out of my base solution here, cut it in half, and take a look at it. Also at this point I decided to put some cabbage juice in my concentration cups just to see what they would do. But watch that cup on the right. Here are the blocks that came out at 10 minutes, and here they are next to the blocks that came out at 20, and the blocks at 30, the blocks at 60 minutes, and here are the blocks all together. I think they changed after getting taken out of the base.
You may have heard of litmus paper before. Litmus is another tool for measuring pH. It's a little paper strip and you dip it into a chemical and it changes color based on whether you dip it into an acid or a base. I got to wondering if we could use the cabbage juice to dye some paper to make our own. So I'm going to try that.
The way I'm going to try to make my cabbage juice litmus paper is just put these white coffee filters into my big bowl of dark purple cabbage juice and then take them out. And I'm just going to let them dry. I'm going to put them on this wooden cutting board and take them outside to dry, and we'll see if they work tomorrow. It was actually really neat the way it would fall into the cabbage juice. Watch this. So my coffee filters have dried. Here's a normal white one, and compared to that, here is my cabbage juice coffee filter. Yeah, it's not that different. It didn't work very well. You can see that my dyed one is just barely a little pinkish purple. But I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to try folding it up and dipping it into a base. So I've got my base mixed up, and I'm just gonna, I think, dip the end of this coffee filter in there. And oh my gosh, it actually turned green. I'm shocked that actually worked. I'm gonna try making my base a little less concentrated and see if I can get a blue or maybe a darker green. So I know I can change the pH of this solution by adding water to it. So I'm going to add water and retry my cabbage paper to see if I can't get a different color, something other than yellow this time. And it's a blue-green color. I got really excited at this point. I figured if I got blue, green, and yellow, then I should try a whole spectrum. But the results were, well, see for yourself. That doesn't mean I can't add cabbage juice to all these cups just for fun, though.
So I hope you enjoyed learning about pH and acids and bases with me. pH and acids and bases are foundational to chemistry. Your body wouldn't work without acids and bases. So I hope you had fun and try some of these experiments on your own and maybe some others that you can think of. And do be safe while you're using these things. If you're using chemicals, you've got to make safe choices. And you didn't see me wearing gloves because I don't have any gloves while I'm sheltering in place. But if you have gloves at home, like for doing the dishes, they'd be a good idea. And have a good rest of your day. You know, at first, you're really happy because it's Jello. And then you're not. Okay, bye.